grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4.
Why is this counting down?
Everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
Welcome to Tales from the Field. My name is Bradley Ball, and we are back and better than ever. It is so good to have you with us. We are continuing with our live stream specifically for Live 360. And today we are joined by none other than the absolutely amazing MVP, Mr. Reza Rad. Reza, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Fantastic to have you here.
Thank you. Really glad to be with you, and thanks for organizing this. And I'm really excited to join the conference as well in about a month, less than a month actually, right? It's like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Sorry, Tom, I muted you. You were talking during the countdown. Go ahead. You're not
soon.
It's very soon. It's coming up very, very, very soon. And I'm excited about it. First off, so Reza, we were talking about this before we came into this, when we were kind of backstage prepping beforehand. But this is really the first time I've got to have a long conversation with you. I got to say hey to you in SQL Saturday, but Jacksonville, I've of course seen you in passing before and probably nodded or waved in your direction. But it is fantastic to get to have you here. This is your first time at Live 360 in Orlando, correct?
Yes, it is. This is an event that I always wanted to join and never had a chance. Sometimes it had a clash with Summit that I have submitted before. Sometimes like my travel plan didn't work. So I'm really glad to join it this time finally and get to see you all. And I love Orlando, of course.
Absolutely. Well, and I do want to thank you because you're a very busy man. Today, for example, we're catching you in Montreal before you catch a flight to Las Vegas for the Power Platform Conference, correct?
Yes, that's right. The flight is like in about 6 hours.
I was going to say, you're moving around so much. It's like you should be in a highly productive detail. Somebody should probably be like, I can't believe you just let them know where Reza was. Now we have to move him again.
Thank you. Yeah, I make airlines and hotels happy. They earn a lot of money.
Well, and that's good. Whenever I look at travel, I either want to travel so much I've got really great status, or so little that I don't have any whatsoever. I prefer the status, but at the same time, I also really like being home sometimes. So let me ask you, at the Power Platform Conference, what are you going to be doing?
Power Platform Conference, I will be doing 2 sessions actually. One would be DAX 101, like very basic, like let's get started with DAX, how to do calculations in Power BI, which apparently it's the problem for a lot of people because they come with like Excel formula background, and in Power BI we do calculation totally differently. So that would be one session. And the next session is a Power BI architecture 1-hour session, which I'm actually going to do the same session in Live 360 as well. And that is talking about how to design a proper architecture for a Power BI solution that is a maintainable solution, not everything in one PBIX file that you have a crazy situation later on when you want to maintain it.
Well, and we had talked about this beforehand.
Yes.
Because the way I came into data was very much through the community. Long ago, I had an executive, I wish I could remember their name because I owe them a big thank you. But when I was working for the White House, they were doing a tour and they asked me what I was interested in. I thought, well, this is probably going to be pretty common. I'm interested in data and SQL because I'm the lead SQL DBA. And they sent me something from an organization called PASS because they were having the first 24-hour PASS session. And I remember there was no money to send me to a conference, but I said, hey, if you let me work from home, I'll prioritize any ticket that comes in. But I'm going to need 2 days because I'm going to stay up overnight. And then on top of that, I'm going to, need to sleep at some point in time because the first one they did 24 hours straight. I do appreciate the fact that the following years it was 2 12-hour days. But I stayed up and I watched it. That was my first view of the community. And when I came to Florida and I started working at public supermarkets, Dan remembers this, but I used to constantly, whenever there was a 24 hours pass, I would reserve a conference room. And if we had a technology that someone was presenting on where it might have something to do with a product, I'd invite people to it. We'd hang out, we'd attend. And one day, one of the lead folks on SQL looked at me and goes, wow, if you love the 24 hours past this much, you must love a SQL Saturday. And I went, what's a SQL Saturday? And he went, well, we're having one in Orlando this weekend. And I went to my very first SQL Saturday. And as many people have said, felt like coming home. The people I met there had the exact same problems I had. They were trying to solve things. People were talking about things in depth that I wanted to learn about. And that community gateway in was just so critically important. And that's really how you found yourself in the position that you are right now as well. I mean, you're an MVP. You speak all over the world. Everybody would love to have you come and speak at their event. But really, when you look at the community, it's those basic steps, getting involved like that. Talk a little bit about your journey, please.
Yes, yeah. So my journey was like, I was like 25 years ago, I think, something like that, about that time. Like when I graduated from uni, I studied computer engineering. When I graduated from uni, I started working as a software developer. Like I did C# development, programming actually, VB.NET development. But very soon, like it might have been pretty much like a year or two, I moved to the database side of things. I really liked how the database is structured, the operational database design, like the normalization of the database, the tables, the structure of that table, writing SQL query. That was one of the things that I really loved. And very quickly after that, I moved into the data warehouse side of things, like building a database that we do analytics on top rather than a database for transactional. And a lot of people think that these two are the same, which actually are not. It has totally different design. So when I was doing that, I was also involved with Microsoft forums, MSDM forums those times. Back in the days, I was also active in Expert Exchange forum. I think these days we still have it, but I'm not, unfortunately, that much active in there. That was a place that I was going there to ask questions, but after a while, I was also trying to get answers to the people as well. And I liked that approach that if someone knows about something, they go and answer someone. Then I started my own blog. I found a lot of people come and read my blog. I also went and read their blogs, and this kind of created like a virtual community. Those days I was back in Iran, and in Iran we didn't have that kind of like pass presence as like a SQL Saturday, things like that. So most of my activity was more like a virtual thing. But when I moved to New Zealand, then I got to know that, well, we have these like user groups. We had like an Auckland SQL user group run by Dave Dustin, and we had like SQL Saturdays in Wellington, Auckland. And I get to see how the community in person works, which was really exciting. And then I got to go to big conferences such as PASS Summit, Microsoft conferences, and that really helped me to grow. So me being here is not just the work that I've done. I think it is mainly the community that I've been involved with. I learned a lot from people in the community. I looked up at the people in the community. Tom here is my mentor, although he may not know it, and many others like Andy Leonard. Many people in this community, I learned a lot from them, and that is actually how it helped me grow. And everyone who actually get into this data space, I always recommend them to get in touch with the community, either join like a user group. Even if they are not going to like speak in that user group, having that community is really helpful.
I absolutely agree. God, I love that. I love how you were based in that. As a matter of fact, I owe a big thank you to Tom. Tom and I have talked about this, and I've gotten the chance to thank him in the past. But Tom, you were pretty critical and essential to that first batch, to even putting forward the idea of the 24 hours of pass, right? You muted yourself this time. I can't unmute.
I muted myself. I was on the pass board. It was not my idea. Rick Hygus, it was his idea that he pitched to the board. And I'll just say reception in the room at that moment was kind of lukewarm. Let's say it was split at best of the idea of doing this 24 hours continuous broadcast. And I jumped on it right away. I was like, that sounds awesome. And so we pulled it off. We basically, the approach at the time was, what can we do that we'll call it budget neutral? Like we could do something, and this was brilliant. Well, it wasn't just budget neutral. Like we were using live meeting, I think. at which you can only get 1,000 people in one room. So we remember you had overflow rooms because we had more than 1,000 people online for this stuff and with live meeting. But we sold sponsorships. We sold, I think it was 5,000 to Dell and Microsoft each to be the sponsors. So this event made money for the community as well. And it really brought a lot of people together online for a very focused, group, a community that would then go meet at SQL Saturdays. And we would advertise. So Brad, you didn't see SQL Saturday mentioned at all in the 24 hours that passed? Because it should have been mentioned.
I'm sure it probably was, but I got to tell you, after about 12 hours, you start to get a little punchy. By the time we hit 24, I was looping.
I did all 24. Did you? I did all 24 that first one. All right.
I did. As a matter of fact, it's always awkward when I tell Louis Davidson that the first time I met him, I was showering while he was on that, because it was 24 hours. I had to find time to be able to shower, but I didn't want to miss the content. It was just too good.
Yeah, it was. Those are some events that I remember. Those were very, I have very fond memories of that period of time in my experience with the data community.
Yes, I completely agree. And I mean, Dan, look, your community journey was right there with me because I was pulling you along to stuff too. So I know you've got some words to say about the community.
I absolutely love this community. When you're up, it's great. They're there for you. But when you're down, that's when it's most important to have friends and they're there for you, right? So like a lot of folks reached out. I took a break. Some of us took a break from presenting and they're like, why are you no longer presenting? And enjoyed your session. And it was that one thing that spurred me on, along with yourself, Brad, and along with yourself, Tom, right? My first experience with Buck Woody was back in the day where I gave my SSMS tips and tricks, and I gave my session and I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh my gosh, that's Buck Woody, that's Buck Woody, that's Buck Woody, that's Buck Woody. So I'm trying to give my session, well, not too fanning too much. And he comes up afterwards and we've been friends since this day. Shoot, we all hang out together now, right? And he comes up to me, he goes, so how did you think it went? And I was like, there were bumpy spots. And he gave me the best advice, right? Because that was my first time on the floor. That was my first time presenting. And from that day forward, it's been nothing good. Now, something happened 3-4 years ago where like, and not just like the data community kind of seemed to take a pause, but I've noticed recently that it's really picking up again. Like people are attending, like SQL Saturday Orlando was well attended. I really enjoyed it. SQL Saturday Jacksonville, well attended. SQL Saturday Atlanta, well attended. Diana Batecourt, SQL Saturday South Florida, well attended. So it seems like the data community is coming back together and forming that bond, and they're forming it even stronger than what it was before.
Absolutely. And look, this data community is what led me to Live 360. I'm going to bring it back to this because it was the blog I was doing and the presentations I was doing that got me on Brett's radar, Brett Sutton, who's one of the big organizers over at Live 360. He wrote me an email saying, hey, I read your blog, saw this, we're putting a conference together. That was back in 2011. Here we are 14 years later. Crazy to think the next year is the 15th year for Live 360. And I started presenting then. This is my favorite place to go every single year. And part of the reason is, first off, the organizers are so lovely and nice and such wonderful people. Second, the event, you take one of my favorite places in this world. I love amusement parks. I mean, obviously, you look around behind me, you can see how much I love Disney and Marvel and stuff like that. So certainly I go to those parks all the time, but you can't live in Orlando and not be at Universal Studios. And of course, Live 360 is on the beautiful grounds of the Universal Studios Orlando theme parks. I mean, when you're walking over to the event, you're going to hear the roar of the whole roller coaster. You're going to hear people screaming from the Dr. Doom drop in the background. You're a simple walk away. Some of the events we'll do. The speaker event is up over at the Hard Rock Cafe. They've got the John Lennon room that we've been in before in the past, which is absolutely amazing. Tons of museum level artifacts there that you can see. We do a dine around. There's tons of wonderful restaurants for us to be able to see. As a matter of fact, if you're staying at the Lowe's Royal Pacific Resort, which is the hotel for conference attendees, your key card is a 2-park fast pass to Islands of Adventures and Universal Studios. And if you're bringing your family, you can get a card per family member. So that way your wife and your kids could go into the park, or your husband, if you're with us. Whoever is there, it's a great time of the year to be able to bring your family as well, because it's right before Thanksgiving. They've already decorated for Christmas. There's typically a really nice gingerbread house and a train going around it in the lobby next to some Christmas trees. It's just a very scenic time of the year to be able to do this. And when you're at the event is fantastic because we have top-notch speakers like Reza who are there. And I mean, this is just something that you don't want to miss out on.
Brad, speaking of screams, I hear people are screaming to get into Reza Rad's session. Power BI. What is it again, Reza? What are you presenting on?
Yeah. So I do want to just throw this up real quick. So this is his session. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to throw this in our YouTube chat for anybody who would like to go and find this. So you've got the link right there. It's already up, and I will have it linked in the description of the bio as well if it's not already there. But Reza has this amazing workshop, Microsoft Fabric for the Power BI professional. And Reza, we were kind of talking about this beforehand as well. And one of the things that really bugs me, and I've seen this a lot, right? I've seen people who go in and they say Power BI or Fabric for the Power BI for professional, and immediately they go data. But it's really, you're jumping way ahead of the process if you go straight to data. Yes, there's amazing, powerful things you can do with data in Microsoft Fabric, and that is part of the value proposition. But if you're a Power BI report developer, if you're a Power BI system administrator, you want to know what's new for you. And we were talking about what you go through and what your philosophy is around that.
Yes, yeah. So let me explain it this way. Like me, you, Dan, Tom, most of us in the data world, we come from the background of like knowing the database, how the tables are structured. We go and normalize the data structure. And then we also know that that is not the best structure to get reports from, because lots of tables, lots of join, it will make the reporting slow. So we'll go and build like dimensional model data warehouse that we then go and build reporting on the top. The thing is that most of the Power BI developers these days are not coming from that background. They are business users. They know a lot about business. They are finance users. They are like Excel users. And there's nothing wrong with that. The main thing about Power BI is that it actually enables all of these users to go and do analytics, which is great. But then the problem is that when these people go and build Power BI solutions and build everything in one PBIX file, it would be a hell lot of problem to get this maintained. Like in 2 years' time, this would be like a huge Power BI file. Every change would take a lot of time. If you have like multiple developers trying to work with this, you cannot really do that. One PBIX file, one person have to work with it. There is no structure, there is no architecture to build this. Whereas in Power BI, we can actually architect it really good. Now, before the age of Fabric, we had to combine it with other Microsoft technologies. Like we had to have Azure SQL Database, probably as like a landing data storage zone, like a Synapse data warehouse for our dimensional model, Azure Analysis Services for our semantic model, Power BI connection, and this used a lot of different technologies. These days, with Fabric, we can do all of that in one place. And that brought me to this kind of like workshop that I do not explain everything in Fabric area because it's like such a huge space. Like we can build operational databases, we can have real-time intelligence, we can have data science. So I'm not going to talk about that, and we cannot talk about all of that in one day, of course. I'm only focusing on the area of that can be beneficial for a Power BI developer. Like as a Power BI developer, I use Power Query to go and get data from a source. I'll transform it, bring it into Power BI, and then visualize it. But that is all in one solution. Now, in this workshop, I'm explaining that, well, that can be separated. You can have a multi-layer structure so that your data first come into like a landing place, like a Lakehouse. We'll stage it over there. We'll use something like a data flow to bring that data from the source, which is still Power Query. And then once the data is there, then from there we'll go and design our data warehouse structure, like dimension table, fact tables. We can use SQL stored procedures to just do that transformation, run that whole thing through a pipeline. Previously, we had that in Azure Data Factory. Now this is also part of Fabric. And then bring it into a warehouse, which, again, previously we had it in Azure Synapse. Now this is also part of Fabric. And I explained how all of these work with one single licensing. So the licensing is also part of this. I also explained the importance of having Power BI semantic model connection to data warehouse, because that comes with the new type of connection, Direct Lake. Previously in Power BI, if we wanted to have a connection into a data source, we either use like import data, bringing the data that needs refreshing. With direct query, we don't do refresh, but the performance is really down. With this new type of connection introduced in Microsoft Fabric, we have Direct Lake. This brings everything together. We have the performance of import data, the freshness of direct query. So I explained that too. And then Power BI report connection on the top. And we actually go through building all of these through hands-on exercises. So there will be like tons of exercises to do all of this. And not only development piece of that, also like a little bit about sharing administration of that as well, such as like we'll put it in this workspace, and then we create organizational app on the top, which is different than the way that we create Power BI app previously. So this workshop basically altogether is designed for someone to get their Power BI solution to the next level. It would be a still Power BI solution, but now you have separate components that altogether builds a good structure that you can maintain it easily. You can have an ETL developer to go and take care of your Lakehouse and the ETL process of data flow, bringing data in. You can have a data warehouse developer to take care of your dimensional model. You can have a semantic model developer to go and build relationships between tables, write DAX calculations, and report visualizer to do all of that. So that entire day is going to be designed like that.
I love it. I love it because that's the key is you've got to cover things from end to end. You can't just skip. Data is a big part of it, but you also have to look at, as a report writer, what expanded capabilities do you now have? As an administrator, what expanded items do you need to look at and need to consider? And then on top of that, when you look at it, I love it that you go into the licensing, because licensing and architecture around this is always a very big deal when you get to customers, because not only do you want to build it, but you want to understand how do we actually pay for this, but then how do we structure it? Because there's a lot of different thoughts right now. There's a lot of different things I see customers doing with regards to capacity when they're going to use capacity for certain services, or they might isolate things for a dev QA and then have a production capacity that they're utilizing, or even potentially a Power BI reporting capacity, and then a data capacity when they get to production, just because of the scale that they need to be able to have and make sure that bottlenecks don't hit from one service to another with the way that they're using that. And so that end-to-end capability, understanding all the things that you can do to be able to create those solutions, big deal. Tom, I think you had something that you wanted to dive into a little bit more on semantic models, correct?
Well, I'd like for Reza to tell us, explain a little bit what a semantic model is, but mostly, and I ask because I feel semantic models have a lot of value that people don't quite grasp. So when he talked about the architecture and he talked about building these things and understanding, a lot of times everybody's data is just kind of a jumbled mess. There's data over here, I need a report, there's this, that going on. Then you start applying a little bit of structure to that. And you say, okay, let's talk about things in terms of medallion architecture, right? For us, we talk about that. We say we have landing zone, curated zone, consumption zones, but it's, gold, silver, bronze. It's all kind of the same, but at least there's structure being applied to the flow of data through the business. But there's this thing that I don't think enough people know about or talk about. I don't see it discussed in my circles a lot. Maybe it is for Reza where he lives, but semantic models. And I came across them when I was starting to research this thing called knowledge graphs. And these are ideas that go back decades, but I feel that they're not as prominent as they should be, right? And they're very valuable, and I think they're going to be more and more necessary as we continue to move forward with large language models. I think semantic models are going to really help jumpstart adoption in a lot of areas once people get their data organized and they understand how all the pieces fit. So I'd love to have Reza talk about it, because I'd love to have him talk about anything. I'd listen to whatever he has to say.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely love to talk about it, especially like what you say, Tom, is true. Most of and this is especially true for most of people coming from the data background. So I mentioned what is the problem, I mean, not problem, but what is the challenge that people coming from Excel background or finance background working with Power BI, what challenge they have, like not knowing the architecture, how these are placed. People coming from database background, they have this challenge of not knowing what is the point of a semantic model, because they may say, well, I do have a database, like operational database, then I go and build a data warehouse on the top, which is like fact table, dimension tables, based on like dimensional model design practices like Kimball approach and all of that. And we have a really good, nice design of a data warehouse. And then they say, well, on top of this, I can go and build my reports. Like back in the days, SQL Server reporting services, SSRS, we used to go directly into that data warehouse, write a SQL view and get that data, visualize it in that reporting services, which is possible. But one thing that comes in between these is that semantic model. Previously, we used to call it like analysis services, like Cube, up until some time. Then Microsoft came with Tabular Engine in 2012. So now instead of calling it SSAS Cube or SSAS Tabular, we call that altogether like a semantic model. Used to be SQL Server semantic model. Now we call it as a Power BI semantic model, because they are kind of the same thing. Now, the idea for this is that the same structure of tables, fact tables, dimension tables, will bring it into a different storage. This storage has some benefits in terms of like how the infrastructure is built, plus some benefits in terms of like how the new technologies such as AI work with that. One of the benefits of the storage-wise of it is that, like when we bring that data, semantic model has this in-memory technology, that it brings all the data into the memory. Like when I'm working with 2-3 tables, it brings the data of that into the memory. It of course has like a pagination, the data, because you may not have enough space to have all of your data in that memory. So the data that is most used, it comes into the memory. After sometimes not using it, it goes back to the data storage. We have the concept of like hot cache, cold cache, all of those kind of things that manage this way of storage. So the performance is good. That is one of the things. The other thing is that it places well with the reporting technologies. For example, if I go and build a Power BI visualization report that understand the connection between the tables of semantic model in a way that data warehouse doesn't understand. For example, in Power BI, when we go and build a slicer and then a chart on the top, we want the slicer to filter the value of the chart. And in Power BI or in the semantic model, we have something called direction of the relationship, which in data warehouse, you don't really have that. You have a relationship. There is no direction, right? That's a totally different thing. So direction of the relationship in Power BI basically conveys the filtering, which is really interesting. And it is also one of the challenges to build a Power BI solution, because people go and build bi-directional, makes the performance work differently. So not only that comes with the semantic model, the other thing is the conceptual areas of that, which Tom actually explained. Like when I go and bring these tables into my semantic model, I can add synonyms to my tables. I can say, for example, this is my sales table, but we also call it the revenue. We also call it something else, right? We'll put all of these synonyms. For every field every column we go and add synonyms, we'll add descriptions. So we'll actually build like a knowledge base of this. We add translation to our model. Like, for example, I might build a Power BI solution that I have users in Germany as well as in Spain, right? So I built this general semantic model. I enable translation on the top so that when they log in, they will see in their own language, not only the data, but also the name of the columns, everything like that. And semantic model has a really nice place to design all of that. Whereas if we want to build that in the data warehouse, I'm not saying it's not possible. It would be a whole lot of extra work to do that. It's not as intuitive design as we can do it. One of the things that we get a lot of people to like resist this semantic model is that they say, well, I already have my data in data warehouse. If I bring it into semantic model, I'm kind of like duplicating the data. And that is one of the main challenges, especially from like if you come from data DBA background, because we want to like minimize the space, right? That is the whole idea. Whereas in analytics, we always say that, well, the storage is not important. It is important that we have a really good performance for our reporting. So even if I duplicate the data, as long as I have a good performance on the reporting side, and as long as I'm actually having a good flow of architecture, that this data comes from my data warehouse into this, it's a good design. So back to, again, what Tom mentioned about that medallion architecture, one really, let's say, common medallion architecture for us normally is something like this, that we have like a, let's say, Lakehouse. I'm talking about Fabric area. Lakehouse as our staging place. All the data from operational systems comes in there. It is not designed in data warehouse like fact table, star schema type of things. From there, we'll bring it into a data warehouse that we have fact table, dimension table, star schema design. From there, we'll bring it into a Power BI semantic model. In there, we'll also add other things such as translation, synonyms, direction of relationship, DAX calculations on the top, which can do a lot of calculations on the fly, such as year-to-date, rolling 12-month calculation, and then Power BI report visualization on the top.
Very nice. So let me ask, because go ahead, Dan.
No, yeah, I want to stick on semantic models here because I've got into this debate, like pineapple on pizza debate, right? A single semantic model or multiple semantic models.
Yes, for pepperoni.
Pineapple on pizza is just wrong. That's the
it has to complement spicy pepperoni, with the sweet of pineapple. It's perfect. It's got to be greasy New York style. I'm not doing this on Pizza Hut or Papa John's. We've been through this.
We don't have time.
It's a yes all day long. Anyway, go ahead, Dan.
Come to Live 360 and we'll have a room just set aside for this debate. No, so Reza, a single semantic model or multiple semantic models, right? A single source of truth, or because when we talk about performance in that, so you brought up those key aspects. Where do you stand on that, or how do you find that?
I would say the main answer is that it really depends on the culture of the organization. When I say culture of the organization, I mean something like this. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm working in an organization that different departments have different data teams, right? For example, the sales department, the HR department, like really big organization, they have their own data analytics team. Like the HR department have their own database not database developer, let's say data warehouse developer, BI developer. That person can build a semantic model with the data. HR data being so sensitive, it makes sense in that kind of scenario to bring only the HR data in a separate semantic model, because they also have the capability in their team to build that semantic model and then use it in their own report. So this might be different from the semantic model we have in the sales department, right? Whereas if I compare it with a different organization, that still it might be a big enterprise, but there is no no such data culture, like segregated approach. We have like one central data analytics team. And even if I go and build a separate sales semantic model, separate marketing semantic model, it is still our team, like our team of BI developer, that works with each of these, right? So we are just switching between these, whereas if we had one bigger semantic model with different, like you can call it data mart, which is like a conceptual data mart. I'm not talking about the Power BI data mart, which is obsolete, right? So within the same semantic model, I have these like separate star schemas. It might be easier for us because we are a centric team to manage it. Of course, in that case, we need to make sure that the security is in place. We need to make sure that we'll define things such as perspective so that it doesn't complicate the whole thing. Like perspective is like creating views on top of a semantic model, so that if I give it to a HR report developer, they only see the HR data. There are some challenges with that. The thing is that with perspective, there's no security, so they can still switch and see other tables. That comes with that. We have then to combine it with things such as column level security, object level security, so that we say that people of this HR, let's say users, they don't have access to this data, or people of this, they don't have access to that data. So building a central semantic model has some benefits in terms of like building everything is in one environment, but then the cons of that is that I have to make sure that the security aspects of it is all very detailed, defined. If I build segregated semantic models, some of the benefits of that is that the security is within that semantic model, right? I'm just sharing that semantic model, whereas then I need to make sure that these semantic models understand each other. Like we go and build like part of our sales measures in sales semantic model, then how this HR are going to use it, which brings us to building composite semantic model, right? So we build a semantic model that has part of the data from sales, part of the data from HR. Again, the security matters. So it's not an easy answer to say either this or that. It depends on many factors. But based on what I have seen in a lot of organizations with their data culture, we see more people towards more like a central approach, building something, and then on top of it, building some kind of like a smaller composite models that would only focus on part of that data.
So Donald Parrish has a statement, and I think this also dives into kind of what we were talking about, the differences for people who are specifically Power BI developers. Conform dimensions with Direct Lake, we can more easily have one big model. Part of that is also because of the size increase for what you can support for Direct Lake. And I recall I had a customer I was working with, and they had an incredibly large semantic model they were processing, and literally had hit a condition where they got an out of memory mirror because they had just grown to that level where they couldn't do the reprocessing of it. But we were able to convert it to Direct Lake. And because of the increased size that you could have with that and the way that the data actually works, and it's kind of that best of both worlds, it could fall back to Direct Lake mode, or to direct query mode. But if you're actually able to take advantage of that and have that process be effective, Direct Lake is a really nice workaround with that as well.
Is absolutely true, both Donald and Brad. And that is one of the good things that comes with Fabric for Power BI, which I really focus on that in that workshop. This Direct Lake approach, not only the performance, but also the fact that we are using the data that we already have. So talking about that, like duplicating the data, Direct Lake actually reduce one level of duplication. I already have my data stored in the data warehouse in Fabric. These are stored as Delta Lake table, which underneath is like Parquet file. Parquet is a column storage. Instead of Power BI reading it from there and building its own proprietary column storage, Power BI directly connect to that Parquet file as if this is its own proprietary file. So Power BI does not really copy that data, which brings us to the fact that you mentioned, Brad, that storage would not be a problem. On the other hand side, I don't need to refresh my data because I'm not really importing it. That's a huge benefit for Power BI users when they use Fabric.
Absolutely. So out of curiosity, I know you're not going to cover this because we talked about how data science is kind of outside of the band. I've been doing a lot of work with data agents. I've done a lot of work with data agents with customers. And one of the things that I find absolutely amazing, but I also think is going to be very, very powerful. We can use semantic models for a data agent. When we get the capability, like with KQL databases, Warehouse, Lakehouse, where we can have example queries that we can put in place. And that is going to be coming. The product group has talked about that. That's something they're actively working on. When we get that capability to have those example DAX queries, I think that's just going to be absolutely fascinating because so much work goes into tuning these models, has already been gone into making it a source of trusted truth. Like when you think about the level of work you have to do to be able to get something that you could use for an AI agent to be able to surface that. And then where I see a lot of power is how can I consolidate things? How can I allow myself to have a conversation with my data that sometimes, even though people know T-SQL or they know DAX or they know what it looks like on a report, when you're just able to have that semantic conversation, I see people get insights about their data, the way that they could store their data, the way that their data works with one another, that they hadn't previously. And I find that leads to additional work on the data structures to be able to then allow the agents to perform better. But have you played around with that at all? Because I'm very excited about what we can do with agents and with semantic models, especially with how much effort and work goes into semantic models.
Yeah, it is quite interesting, actually. The two parts of it, yes. So I'm quite excited about all of these like AI capabilities, not only in Power BI, but also the Fabric, in all other areas, right? The thing is that we have to work on our model to build a good model to have a good AI on top of it. So it is like AI as good as your data, right? So we have to go and build like table structure that is self-explanatory. We have to add good descriptions to our fields. We have to add good synonyms. We have to make sure that the relationships are all correct. When we have this, the generic AI, the Copilot, of course, understands it. Like we can go and ask simple questions like, give me an idea of, based on this data, what report I can go and build, or I already have the report. I want to do this like sales analysis, give me a suggested visual, things like that, and also help on writing the DAX statement, which is normally one of the bigger challenges for a Power BI developer, how to go and write the good DAX expression. That is the generic Copilot. Now with Data Agent, we take that to next level. Data Agent at the moment is more like towards data warehouse design, like or Lakehouse. That is a place that, like when we ask a question, it writes a SQL code for us. But this can extend into the Power BI semantic model, so that when we go and ask a question, this come up with the DAX expression for it, and then as a developer, later on, I can go and see what questions people asked from their semantic model. And then I can teach Copilot that if next time someone came and asked this type of question, instead of the table and field you use there, it is better to use, for example, this calculation, or use this table combined with another table. This will consider it, and that is where the good thing about Data Agent comes through, because then it combines the understanding of machine with the human knowledge of someone who has the understanding of the semantic model. Combined of these would give us a much better Copilot response, which we can rely on it much better. So our job kind of like transforming gradually, instead of like as developers being the only people responsible for generating insight. Copilot helps us to generate insight, but then we help Copilot to generate good insight. So our job might be even going through that direction of helping to get a better response in Copilot, which is exciting.
Oh, I completely agree with you, because when you look at setting up agents, right, you've got to put in AI instructions. And often what are you doing? You're taking confusing names that you have within your tables. I mean, because we don't call things customer ID number with spaces in them. We call it, CST or CX underscore IDs underscore NBR. And well, the model may be able to figure out what that is. What do we have to do in Power BI and in the semantic model? We make friendly names. And so we don't have to take and build those synonyms in there already with AI instructions. If we've got them in a semantic model, it's much easier because we already try in a reporting nature to be able to make these things be much more user-friendly. And I part of the thought process that I've been having is we're going to have a level of data modeling that we start to get to specifically for AI agents. It's going to be similar to what we've had to do for business intelligence systems. But I really think the semantic model and all the work that we've done there, we're going to largely derive a lot of it from there. Because as you were saying, being able to set an instruction and say, answer this question, use this calculation. Versus answer this question, come up with your own formula based off these column names that we've put together. Those capabilities to be able to do that, they're at the tip of our fingertips. By the time we're sitting here at Live 360 next year, we're going to have all that functionality in place. And we've already got it to where we can experiment with it within the data agent framework. One of the things I had talked with some customers was when they deploy a report in an app, they should deploy a data agent with it as well. Simply so that way they can have the conversational interaction with that semantic model. And there's quite a few people I'm seeing that are doing that, taking advantage of that. And so really, when you look at the work that you're going to do in this pre-con, it is just fundamental for people to understand, how do I get up and running with this? And then once I'm up and running with it, just recognizing some of these possibilities. And I just realized we haven't thrown this on the screen yet. So let me grab this, but we do have a wonderful thing going on from the conference. Right now we have a discount code, Tales from the Field, 7-day packages. You can get a $500 discount, and on 3 to 4 day packages, you can get a $300 discount off the full conference registration. And when you go ahead and get the full conference registration, you want to make sure that you're signing up for Reza's PostCon. This is going to be on Friday. Before you fly home, before, maybe stick around on Saturday, fly home on Sunday so you can enjoy the parks one more day. Get that great time in with Reza. Be able to soak in the sunshine and the wonderfulness that is Orlando before you go back, because it's going to be Thanksgiving. It's going to be cold. More than likely, where you're going to is not going to be warmer than Orlando, Florida. So you want to get that time in, and you want to make sure, because this is the PostCon. Typically, when you look at the event, we've got Sunday, we've got our hands-on labs. Monday, we've already talked about the pre-cons we've got on Monday, the main event Tuesday through Thursday. And then we've presented postcons before. I love doing the postcon because you get everybody. They've had a fantastic week. They're coming in, they're ready to go. And they're already in the frame of mind that they need to be able to learn. And this is a pre-con that people are, if you miss this, you're going to kick yourself. You're going to want to be in this postcon.
And so, current weather report, Brad, it's still a couple days out, but a high of 80, a low of 63, folks. High of 80, low of 63. Come on down. The weather's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, I saw an ad once that said, we don't have winter in Florida, we have bragging season. And I thought, yeah, that's true. It is pretty nice down here. The summer we are not bragging about. We are stuck inside with our air conditioning. But when it gets to winter, we're very, very happy to be down here. So Reza, I absolutely love this. You were talking about, what are the other sessions that you've also got at Live 360? Because one of the things I think people need to keep in mind is they've got the capability when they come to the conference, they're going to be able to see you, they're going to be able to network with you, ask questions, but you've got some other sessions that you're presenting that they're going to be able to attend as well.
Yes, yeah. So if someone cannot attend the workshop, or even if they can attend the workshop, I do have 2 other sessions, if I remember it's 2, and also a panel discussion. So panel discussion is more like this, talking with other speakers. If you have any questions, we'll be there to answer all of your questions, which is normally one of the best type of sessions people can attend, because people come with different questions. Even if you don't ask a question, you still learn a lot from people asking questions and the responses you get from speakers. The 2 sessions that I have are also kind of related to an area of the of the pre-con that I'm doing. One of them is Direct Lake, how we use it and how this is different from import data and direct query. In that, we go much deeper into how the Direct Lake structure is, like what is the licensing requirement to build it, then second is that when this solution is built, what is something called like fallback to direct query, what happens when that situation occurs, when do you or where do you go and do the configuration of, for example, do I want to fall back to direct query or not? What are those guardrails designed for this? So we'll go much deeper into that specific area, but it's a 1 hour session. So sessions are not like a workshop that you do the hands-on. Like me as a presenter, I'll explain to you how this is. You can then go and practice it yourself. But there will be lots of information within that 1 hour of session that will go through details of that. That is one of the sessions. The other one is building the Power BI architecture, which again, we talk about that medallion scenario of like bronze, silver, gold, how to build it. If you are using Fabric licenses, this is how you go and build it. Even if you don't use Fabric license, because we still have people using like Pro license only for Power BI or PPU. Even with that, what are the components you can still use within that situation to build that multi-layered architecture? How should be your workspace setup when you are building like your development environment, test environment, production environment, the deployment between these, how you can set up like the Git integration so that you have a good version history of your changes. What are the mechanisms you can share your solution to your end user? So that architecture solution is not mainly a developer solution. It is mainly focusing on aspects around development, such as administration, such as sharing, such as areas that can help you to extend this implementation of Power BI so that it is more reusable, easier to maintain in the future.
So Reza, love that set. So if I'm not presenting, I'm attending both of those, by the way, folks. So from a licensing perspective, right? We talked a little bit about this pre-show. Seen a lot of folks, right, going from the P to F SKU. We won't get into the reasons why, right? But folks are moving from P to F SKU. Do you cover some of the licensing there? Because there's benefits, right, to going to an F64 versus an F32 or 16 when you're moving from a P1. Do you cover that in that session?
Yes, yeah, we talk about that. And the thing is that, like, as you mentioned, Dan, not many people are aware of that. Not many people are even aware that their P capacity, they can just turn the switch and they have all of these Fabric capabilities. They think that they have to add more to get something from it. So we talk about that. I also talk a little bit about the capacity management itself, like, because we previously used to have only this capacity for Power BI, right? Now we have it for Power BI, for data integration, for data warehouse. It may not be enough. Like, what are the ways that we can manage that? Would we have like one capacity per environment, like dev environment, production environment, things like that? I talk about those aspects of it as well, which would be useful for actual real world scenario of using it.
Very nice. So we actually have a question. I don't know this off the top of my head, so I'm going to throw it up. We'll see what we can get live, but this might take some experimentation. Pantry Coupon, thank you for joining us, says, when I add a column to a bronze layer, Lakehouse or Delta table, it does not automatically appear in your Dataflow Gen 2. How do you fix that? Reza, is that something you've come across?
Yeah, so the thing about Dataflow, both Gen 1 and Gen 2, is that these are like when we go and build a Dataflow, we are actually building an ETL scenario, right? Like back in the days that we used to build SSIS, right? We went and said, well, we are getting data from this table. These are our columns. We might do transformation, might not. And then we pass it to a destination. We set the mapping, right? This structure is normally a static structure. Then if later on we'll go and add a column in the source table, we don't have it in here. And that is just like by design of these products. So if you want to go and bring it, you have to go and edit your data flow, Gen 1, Gen 2, any of these, and build it that way. There are ways to make this dynamic, but not using data flow. Like, for example, if you are a Python developer, you might go and write a Python script that go and bring entire columns from that source, and then do some of the transformation, pass it to the destination. However, with that, there will be always some challenges as well. Like this new column that you added, the default data type that it understands may not be the right data type. You may need to add some transformations in between these, things like that. So with that dynamic approach, you are losing some of the control around it. But definitely, from the data flow point of view, you cannot make it dynamic. Not now. In the future, we might, but not now.
Well, and looking at this, wouldn't you go into the step for the data flow where you're defining the original source? Because it'll list every single column name. And so if you go into that M, you'll be able to add that individual column name. It's slightly manual, but you won't have to like redo the entire data flow.
It's
absolutely
just like a couple of steps. You go to the step that you selected the columns, and then if you have done any transformation that needs that column, you'll also bring it over there, but you are not going to build that whole thing again. No, it would be much smaller work.
Yeah. Okay. Which makes perfect sense. Pantry Coupon, thank you for the question. Hope that answers. Hit us up in the chat and let us know how that worked out for you. Dan, sorry, I saw you nodding your head.
No, I'm like, I know folks get tired of hearing this, but ideas at Microsoft.com. If you want to take care of column or schema drift and you'd like to see that, put that idea out there. But, you know, I don't normally see, right, folks, Reza, I don't normally see people pulling their entire source table in their data flow. Actually, that's pretty bad idea, honestly. Not being critical, but you don't want to pull every column. You want to pull those columns that you're interested to save on memory, save on processing time and stuff like that. So the only way I could see schema drift working is if you had all the columns in there, and that's not a good idea anyhow, I don't think. So interesting.
Well, and I'm curious. Well, I was going to say, because I've never tried this, but I'd like to see, you know, could you use Copilot for this? Could you go into Copilot and say, we've added this column to the source table? Would it be able to edit the data flow for you? I don't know if that would work or not, but that, I mean, that should be something we can test out.
It's available in data flow, so it can help, certainly. I haven't done this particular scenario, but it should be able to help. So that's one thing. The other thing, totally agree with what Dan mentioned. Because the point of this medallion architecture is that there are different levels of trustworthiness in this data. My bronze data is not going to be like all the data that's, I mean, in my silver layer, I don't want everything bronze layer. I want to clean it up, right? Only bring select columns from there, because some of the columns might be still in work in progress, right? So selecting only those that we need, and that is one of the things that we do through data cleaning process.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Dan, and I am going to tell you, please help me remember that down, because that's a video idea right there. Can we use Copilot to fix schema drift? I mean, if it works, it's a video. If it doesn't work, then I guess we just post on a forum, this doesn't work. All right. Well, we're coming to the top of the hour. So any other questions? Tom, Dan, anything that you've got? Reza? So we've talked about a lot of different food and restaurants before we came. One of our next sessions that we cover is actually going to be the Know Before You Go. We're going to cover a lot of the local places we would recommend and travel, and any recommendation. Anything that you are looking forward to that we mentioned in the pre-show from a food perspective that we're going to be able to get you over to?
Yeah, you mentioned there is a gelato, very good gelato. So really looking forward to that.
Yes.
Yes, the gelato is fantastic. And the nice thing is it is so close to the resort. It's just down on Dr. Phillips, La Carrera Gelato, best gelato in Italy, in Orlando. Only franchise in the world. We're gonna cover that tomorrow. I'll make sure we throw a link to the Yelp page out there as well, so people can find the address and go in there and patronage them. But I love it because they kind of have the sweet side and then they've got the savory side. set up, and you want to get the little samples of each of them and figure out which one you really want, because then you go for it. And it's not a tiny little cup. They may offer you a tiny little cup, but it's going to be like 5 times the size of that tiny little cup what they give you.
Yeah, and you know what they say about dessert? I have a friend, Christian, working in Microsoft Switzerland, Zurich. He said this, so I'm actually copying his line. Dessert doesn't go to your belly, it goes to your heart.
I love that.
I'm not sure that's better.
Well, depends. In America, that can mean a lot of things.
I don't know.
All right. Well, once again, MVP Reza Rad, MVP Thomas LaRock, Dan Taylor from the Microsoft Migration Factory team. We're all going to be at Live 360. We hope to see you there. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Be good to one another. Bye.
Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's gonna be a good